Allah says, أَمْ تُرِيدُونَ أَن تَسْأَلُوا رَسُولَكُمْ كَمَا سُئِلَ مُوسَى مِنْ قَبْلِ. Are you intending to ask your messenger the way Musa was asked before, much before? وَمَنْ يَتَبَدَّلِ الْكُفْرَ بِالْإِيمَانِ فَقَدْ ضَلَّ سَوَاءَ السَّبِيلِ. And whoever wants to replace their faith with disbelief has gone far away from the straight path. They've lost their way far away from the path that they're supposed to be on. This ayah seems to suggest, how dare you ask questions the way Musa was asked? Don't ask your prophet the way Musa was asked, because if you do, you've essentially replaced your faith with disbelief. So there seems to be this opposing view. On the one hand, the Quran celebrates questions. On the one hand, actually, ayhatun lis-sa'ilin, come and ask. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people who of remembrance if you yourselves don't know. Sal Bani Israel, go ask them. Ask and ask. And on the other hand, how dare you ask? So we have to reconcile this, what the function and purpose of this ayah is. The first thing I'd like to share with you is that the study of the Quran is a sensitive study. And one of the most fundamental approaches to the study of the text of the Quran is that you have to take into consideration the context, the place in which a statement is mentioned. For you that are university students, this is all too easy to understand. You never take a sentence in a chapter ignorant of the paragraph it belongs to, or the chapter that it belongs to, or the textbook that it belongs to. Context is everything. Outside of context, you can barely make sense of anything. The statement that I just shared with you, where Allah says, are you intending to question your messenger the way Musa was, is actually a statement occurring in Surah Al-Baqarah. And it's part of a very long passage in Baqarah where Allah mentions quite a few of the ongoings of the Israelites, the children of Israel. And within that discussion, there are a number of questions that the Israelites asked Musa. So when Allah is saying now, are you going to ask him the way Musa was asked? There's already a context in which we've learned how was Musa questioned. I'd like to actually give you like an easier example to understand this point. I've been in the teaching profession for a long time. In the classroom, there are different kinds of questions. There's an inquisitive student who just wants to understand, and he or she dares to raise their hand or raise their voice and say, look, I don't get this. Or how does that make any sense? Doesn't this contradict that? Etc., etc. They ask a question. And a seasoned teacher knows well enough that the moment they hear this question, the student really wants to understand. They're eager to understand better. And they'll welcome those kinds of questions because it creates fruitful discussion in the classroom. But then there's the class clown. There's the guy who, A, is not interested in learning, and B, is interested in making sure nobody else learns either. They'd like to turn the classroom experience into an entertaining experience. And the way they do that is that they'll actually ask really obnoxious, ridiculous, condescending, sarcastic kinds of questions. And a seasoned teacher, or anybody with half the wit, would know that this guy is pulling my leg. Like, he's not really asking a question to understand. He's asking a question to distract from the actual subject matter, or to be insulting, or to be condescending. Sometimes even in a question, you could be insulting to somebody. Like, for example, just to take an easy example, a couple of people are talking, are you for real? That's a question. But it's a kind of question that puts, questions somebody or their integrity, or whether or not they're serious, or whether or not they're telling the truth. Are you kidding me? أَتَتَّخِذُنَا هُزُوًا? Literally in the Quran. Are you taking us for a joke? Are you serious? This is how they asked Musa alayhi salam. There's the question that is inquisitive. Through it, you want to learn. That's all you're interested in. You want to reconcile a contradiction. You want to understand something better. Something's not adding up to you. Those are the kinds of questions that the Book of Allah and this religion welcomes. Open door policy. Then there are the kinds of questions that are just meant to be obnoxious. And it's actually not even in the way the question is phrased, but it's the attitude that lies behind that question, the motivations behind that question. There are a couple of things here. What is it that you're asking? And why are you asking? And how are you asking? There are three pieces to this. What are you asking? Why are you asking? And how are you asking? Now the thing with Musa alayhi salam, look, you can't tell why somebody's asking because intentions lie inside the heart. There's no way for me to tell. So all I can judge and you can judge for others is number one, what are they asking? And number two, how are they asking? That's all we can judge. Though what you're asking, if it's clearly purposeful, it's meant to serve some kind of higher understanding, it's a welcome question. But even then, even if it's a good question, the Quran makes sure that we don't just ask, that we ask properly, that the how should be taken care of, that we should take into consideration the mannerism, the tone. Like for example, I have a student, very passionate student, and he'll discuss the simplest of things. I mean, just yesterday he talked to me about some issue in Arabic grammar. It's not like a iman and kufr issue. It's the labeling of a sentence and how it should be organized or whatever. And his voice rose and he got really passionate. And I had to say, just, wait, easy, easy. We're just discussing nouns. This is not like, some great cause where blood is being spilled. Relax. He goes, yeah, I know I get a little worked up. It's okay. It's okay. You don't have to get worked up about stuff. You can ask in a civilized way. You can keep yourself cool and ask. So there's the what and there's the how. Now when Allah says, Kama su'ila Musa min qabl, there are a couple of things there. Obviously the intention I can only check for myself. I can't check your intentions and you can't check mine. But what we ask and how we ask is important. It does matter. The manner in which you speak to somebody, the words you choose to use, the tone you choose to use, the facial expressions you make, that's all part of the how. Don't do that before the Prophet ﷺ the way people did with Musa a.s. Don't be condescending. The Quran even makes a point indicating that facial expressions are offensive. The way you stare at someone can be offensive. ثُمَّ عَبَسَ وَبَصَرَ ثُمَّ أَدْبَرَ وَاسْتَكْبَرَ. He frowned and he stared. لَيُزْلِقُونَكَ بِأَبْصَارِهِمْ. They look at you in a way that makes you want to almost trip up, the way they stare you down. Like Allah will highlight, لَا تُسَعِّرْ خَدَّكَ لِلنَّاسِ. Don't have swelled up cheeks when you meet with people. Don't be stuck up when you meet with people. All these expressions in the Quran about how your face looks when you deal with people. So this is part of how to ask.